So today we're talking about communication apprehension, and all 3 prompts are going to be in this one video. So the first prompt is about the myths. There were a total of 8 myths, all of which I agree with, just because I've personally gone through them. So the first myth is that people who suffer from speaking anxiety are neurotic. No, they're not. It's normal. Everybody gets nervous when they have to talk in front of a big crowd or give a presentation. It's completely normal. There's nothing psychologically wrong with them. So that's good on my part because I always get nervous. But I just know it's because I'm such an introvert, and just speaking in big crowds makes me nervous. But like I said in my last video, after being a CNA and doing clinicals and talking about all the crazy stuff we talk about there, it's become a lot easier to speak in front of people for me. Next is telling a joke is a good way to start off. And no, it's not, because humor is hard. It's hard to get a joke that is guaranteed a funny thing that people are going to laugh at, because they might not get the joke, or maybe it's just not funny. So that can lead to a lot of awkward silence, and that's just going to make you even more nervous and not be such a good look. The third one is imagine that the audience is naked. I've heard that so many times, and I've never done it because I just don't think it worked out too good. It just doesn't seem like the best idea to calm somebody down, and it's not an actual way to slow down your sympathetic nervous system, which is a fight or flight response. So yeah, that myth is a bust. The next one is any mistake means you blew it. That is wrong. You can stutter or say like one time and you'll be fine. You didn't blow it. As long as you get your point across to the audience, you made that presentation a success. The next one is to write your speech and memorize it. I never write anything to memorize something because I know I get nervous before a speech, before a test, and I know that if I try and do it this way to memorize things, I'll freak out at the last minute and get nervous and mix things up and forget everything. So yeah, I don't do that. That's not a good idea. I don't suggest it. And you will forget it. You will get nervous enough and you will forget it. The next one is that the audience is out for blood. They're out to get you. They just don't like you. That's not true. It might seem like it. You might think that they're laughing at you, and they're not. They're just there to listen to the information. So go up there when you present, do your job, give them the information, and don't worry about them being there to hate on you, because that's not what they're there for. They're there to get the information that you're going to give. The next thing is the audience can tell that you're nervous. They honestly can't. You'll think that they can, but they do it every time. Like if I finish my presentation and I'll talk to my friends after it, I'll say that how I am so nervous, or I was so nervous, and they'll be like, you look fine, you look great, you did awesome. And it's always the case. So just go up there, have confidence. If you're nervous, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. Everybody gets nervous. And the last one is that a little nervousness can be a good thing. It can, because once your sympathetic system starts going and your adrenaline gets pumped, then you just have all this energy. And if you have a long presentation, you get well into it and you get into stuff that you really know really good, all that energy will be used nicely, and it creates for excitement in the presentation. So especially if you have a long one, you want that excitement so your audience doesn't become bored, rather than having a presentation that's super laid back and chill and there's no like spice to it or anything. So nervousness that gives you energy is always good. Okay, then, so yeah, I've been told pretty much all of these, and I've learned over the years that they aren't true, except for the last one. The nervousness can be good. Yes, it can. sometimes, but other times when you're a little bit too nervous, then it cannot work so well, because then you really start stuttering and everything just goes wrong. Yeah, I have observed them, especially the nervousness part. Usually you don't notice people that are nervous, but there's one person last year that I saw when we were doing our senior exit projects, and he seemed like a really outgoing person, very extroverted, but then when we had to present, he was holding his cards and he was holding them up and his hands were shaking really bad. So that's one thing I know not to do, is hold my hands up really bad when I'm shaking. So I try and hold on to something else and keep them low. If there's a podium, I hold onto the podium, so that way I know I'm not going to shake, because I know that's how nervous I get. So if I know I can hide it, I'll hide it. And that's all for that one. So for prompt 2, for Joe Cohen's TED Talk presentation, he talked about how he was very nervous and had a big stage fright about a performance that he was going on to. And his way of coping with that was at first to imagine that they were naked. That didn't work. And then second, he decided to write a song about it. For him, that might have worked. For me, might not work, especially singing. I already don't like talking in public. I'm not going to sing in public. But I try and joke, I guess. Maybe afterwards. Or maybe even start with a joke. Even though that sounds bad because it contradicts the previous statement. But like, if I could just kind of go ahead and say, you know, I'm an introvert, I'm going to be nervous, just pretty much put myself out there, then I feel a little bit calmer, because they're going to probably expect the worst and it won't be that bad. And coping devices. So pretty much his coping device was just to try and practice over and over and over again, because they always say practice makes perfect. So he kept going to the same karaoke or bar or open mic night place. He kept going there over and over and over again until eventually he wasn't as nervous. And I think that definitely works. That's what we did when we had our senior exit project, and we just presented over and over and over again to all these different classes until we weren't nervous. And it worked for me because most of the other people in the classes were strangers, because I just moved there. So each time I was presenting to people that I didn't know. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking, but after a while, and my confidence grew, and I knew that my presentation was good. So when I went in to do my presentation, my official presentation, it wasn't that bad for me. And how did he engage with the audience? I think he made a lot of jokes, and it worked out for him, luckily. He just kind of kept it real. So I think when you're just honest with yourself and you're honest with your audience, and you're able to joke about things such as that relate to the topic, which is something that you can actually joke about, it works. And he kept them definitely entertained. And then when he brought out the song at the end that he was talking about in his presentation, I think that all tied it together really nicely. And lastly, my experience with communication apprehension. So as I said multiple times, I am very introverted. I was born that way. I just can't go out and talk to a crowd super easily. But now we know the crazy conversations that I have, I've been able to kind of come out of my shell a little bit. One of my teachers from the nursing program, Chastity Washburn, she told me when I was doing a volunteer thing that she was like me. She was very introverted and just quiet when she started the nursing program. And then after that, she opened up. And if you know Chastity Washburn, you know how open she is. So, yeah. I think that although I was super introverted, I have definitely come out of my shell. Now before, don't talk to me. Like, when I changed, like I said, I moved. So when I changed schools, it was hard for me to make friends with people because I didn't know them. So I didn't really want to go out of my way to really get to know them. One, because I was only going to be there for a year, and two, because I know how introverted I am and how shy I am. So a lot of people end up thinking that I don't like them, but I might actually like them, like really like them, like love their personality, but it's just me and my nervousness that gets in the way, and I cannot function enough to make polite conversation. Like I said, we did our NC final project, our senior exit project last year, and I presented to all of these strangers, but the first people I presented to was my classmates. And I was more nervous about them than I was about the strangers. So when I presented to them, I had my note cards ready. I practiced the night before over and over and over again, so I really knew the information. It was just, I was so nervous. I saw my hands were shaking. So like I said, I grabbed a little podium and I used that, and I just held on to that so they couldn't see that I was shaking. So I'm just doing a death grip on it just to try and hide the fact of how nervous I was. And I was able to get through the presentation. I'm pretty sure I probably stuttered and there was a lot of ums like there is now, but after that one and then presenting for a while after that, it all of my inhibitions, everything that I was really nervous about just kind of let go. And when I did my actual presentation instead of the practice, I did really good. So yeah, it's just about letting go, not being as nervous, and just realizing that nothing really bad is going to happen. Like, you're not going to die after you give this presentation, or you're not going to die from giving this presentation. So it's just about taking a lot of deep breaths, finding what calms you down, so that when you go out there, you won't be as nervous as you are. And for me, I get really nervous, so I take a lot of deep breaths. I do a lot of woosahs, and eventually I can calm myself down. I can bring myself from like 1,000 to about 50%, well, 75% nerves. So far it's worked for me. Now I'm not as nervous talking to other people, so it's been working out pretty good, and my communication apprehension isn't as bad as it used to be. So that's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to making more.